And motion is carried. Well, okay. All right. The minutes of the public meeting of September 18th, Council accept a motion on their presentation. It is moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Any errors or omissions? Errors or omissions? Okay. Hearing none, we'll call it. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Business arising then from the meeting of September 18th. Business arising. Councillor Stoyles.
670, Your Worship. I asked for a request.
I'm sorry,
670.
670?
About transporting of dangerous goods like the firearms and where the things fell off of the truck. The explosions fell off of the truck, and in the report says that it was still ongoing. It was in process. So I'm just wondering if we had an answer. They were checking it out, and I'm just wondering if we had received any updates on it.
I'm assuming that Mr. Randall, that would have fallen
No,
either
it
to
fell
you.
under
Mr. Yevchek fell under you. Okay. Which one of you taking the ball? Go ahead,
Your
Mr.
Worship,
Yevchek.
yeah, I did check it out based on the last council meeting, and actually I just sent an email to council. This comes under the Transportation and Dangerous Goods Act.
Right.
You do require a permit. You require a permit from the Ministry of Transport, and this is federal jurisdiction.
This is not something that would require a permit from the City of Mount Pearl.
No, Your Worship.
Or from the province?
Nor for the province.
So,
Does that answer the question?
yeah, so we wouldn't know if the permit was issued in the case where it fell off of the truck in Mount Pearl and
No, we wouldn't know.
We would know.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other business arising? Again, from the minutes of September 18th, business arising. Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Council, today, as you can see in the gallery, we have some people joining us for a little bit. We have two proclamations that we're going to sign today. And I'm honored to be able to do so. And what I'm going to do is read both of them into the record. And then I'm going to invite some people up here to speak to council about them. First of all, I want to recognize down there Inspector Cara Party with the St. John's Regional Fire Department. Inspector, good afternoon. We're going to invite you to come up here. I'm going to read this into the record, and then if you want, we're going to ask you to address council on all of the things related to Fire Prevention Week this year. And we're going to give you this so that you can talk about it. All right, first, for the record, the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the City of Mount Pearl is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are where people are at greatest risk of fire, and whereas cooking equipment is the leading cause of home structure fires and associated injuries are the third leading cause of home fire deaths, and whereas heating and electrical equipment and smoking materials are among the leading causes of reported home fires, and whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half, whereas the City of Mount Pearl first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire deaths and injuries through prevention and protection education, and whereas Mount Pearl residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes, and whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and whereas the Fire Prevention Week 2012 theme, Have Two Ways Out, effectively serves to remind us all of the simple actions we can take to keep our homes and families safe from fire during Fire Prevention Week and year-round. Therefore, I, Randy Sims, Mayor of Mount Pearl, do hereby proclaim the week of October 3rd through to October 7th through to the 13th, 2012, as Fire Prevention Week, and I urge all the people of Mount Pearl to heed the important safety messages of Fire Prevention Week and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the St. John's Regional Fire Department's Fire and Emergency Services. And I call upon the people of the City of Mount Pearl to participate in fire prevention activities at home, work, and school, and to take the steps needed to make their homes and families safe from the leading cause of home fires, which include cooking, heating, and electrical. In witness thereof, on behalf of the City of Mount Pearl and the citizens of the city, I affix my signature on this date. And Inspector Party, after signing this, I'm going to invite you to address council and give us some idea of some of the activities you have planned Fire Prevention Week this year?
He's a superintendent. He doesn't get to do fun tasks like this.
Inspector Byrne, I didn't even see you sneak in.
He's pretty quiet. Hey.
Welcome. We're still going to let Kara do the talking.
He's
Inspector
grateful of that, I'm sure.
Is that right? You go right ahead. Let us know what's going on.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Fire Prevention Week kicks off this Saturday. We have our annual Fire Prevention Parade that goes through all the municipalities that we service, St. John's, Mount Pearl, Paradise, and the Ghouls. We end up at Mount Pearl Station afterwards, and if there's anybody attending the parade, I don't think I see anybody here. But just in case you are, come into Mount Pearl Station for some coffee and donuts.
Very good.
All next week, we will have an information booth set up in the Avalon Mall from 10 in the morning till 10 in the evening, so you can drop by for some information on fire safety, both for your home and for your workplace. As well, next week, the different stations will be doing scheduled fire drills with all of the schools in our region, under the Avalon East as well as the private schools. So the trucks will go to the schools and watch the fire drills and make sure that everything is being done properly. The schools have it perfected for the most part. They do 10 a year, so they're good at it. If you ever want to know how to do a drill, go watch the kids because they're experts. And then next Saturday, at the final day of Fire Prevention Week, we have our Fire Recognition Day at Central Fire Station. And that's an open house for anybody who wants to come. There will be pea soup. So if anybody likes pea soup and fresh meat soup and hot dogs for the kids. Lots of people come for the pea soup.
Yeah, I think we're in. I
No.
think we're in.
There's no sneaking out. Great minds think alike. So feel free to drop by. It's from 10 until 4. And you can get a chance to have a look at all of our equipment that we use and meet some of the firefighters and have some pea soup. That's what it's all about.
Well, Inspector Party, thank you very much. Good luck
You're
with
welcome.
With the campaign this year. Have two ways out, a very effective, short message and very to the point. Good luck with all the activities. By the way, when is Fire Chief for a day? We got a new Fire Chief, right, for a day. When's that happening? On the Wednesday?
As far as I can tell, our tentative date is November 1st.
Is that when that happens, is it?
Yes,
Okay,
that was
doesn't happen during
arranged.
this week?
No,
that's too bad.
that's one thing I should mention. We have our poster contest. So this week we will be taking posters from the schools. We will make a decision after next week once we get everything, all of the posters in. Then we'll decide who our fire chief for a day is going to be, and the event will be held on November 1st.
Perfect.
So
Great
we'll be out to visit, no doubt, probably you, the deputy mayor, because you're always on the radio in the mornings.
Well, that's true. But no, I think I'm going to make this one.
Oh, excellent.
I think so. They
Good.
tell me I will.
Good,
It's gonna be
good.
12 o'clock.
Well, we look forward to it.
I'm going to give you this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck with the week.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Inspector Party. Appreciate it. Now, Mr. Byrne, you can report you did a good job, Superintendent. Council also in the gallery today. Wave when I say your name. So, okay, we have Bev Clark, who is Vice President for Community and Children's Services at Eastern Health. We also have Josephine St. Croix here as well, I think, a Parent and Child Health Coordinator with Eastern Health. Cynthia Cadigan is here, and that handsome young man with her, his name is Rowan Dirtle, and he's 8 months old. We're going to invite Ms. Clark to come up as well and have a few words to say about this. We're going to read into the record the proclamation on World Breastfeeding Week. And Council, it reads as follows. Whereas the week of October 1st to 7th, 2012 is Breastfeeding Week in Canada, and breastfeeding is promoted by UNICEF, the World Health Organization, the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, Health Canada, Infant Feeding Action Coalition, the Canadian Pediatric Society, La Large League Canada, and Eastern Health. And whereas the health and well-being of all humans are of utmost importance to the prosperity and livelihood of families and communities worldwide. And whereas optimal nutrition is of vital significance in the early months and years of life and has lifelong impact on sustained health. And whereas exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life and continued breastfeeding, along with the addition of appropriate complementary feeding at 6 months and beyond, ensures that both mothers and infants receive maximum health benefits. And whereas breast milk is physiologically tailored to meet infants' maturing digestive systems, ensuring proper growth and development, and whereas breast milk helps prevent a variety of infections and many chronic diseases, including diarrhea, asthma, diabetes, obesity, and certain childhood cancer, and whereas World Breastfeeding Week 2012 is a time to recognize past achievements and future endeavors and to celebrate the 2012 theme, The Road to Lifelong Health Begins with Breastfeeding. Therefore, be it resolved that the week of October 1st to 7th be proclaimed World Breastfeeding Week in the city of Mount Pearl, with special emphasis on breastfeeding promotion, and urge all citizens to seek reliable nutrition information and support breastfeeding as a high priority for healthier babies in our city, to which I will affix my signature. And if you would, Ms. Clark, tell us about your activities for the week.
Thank you, and hello to everybody. It's
Let's try this. Let's turn it on here. Try
There you
that.
go.
There you go.
it's a pleasure to be here, and this is World Health Breastfeeding Week. In Canada, actually, we celebrate it in October. Many countries actually celebrate it in August. But in Canada, we celebrate in October to signify the 40th week of the year, which, of course, is usually the end of pregnancy and the beginning of breastfeeding. So from that perspective, it's an opportunity to just think about it from that perspective. The road to lifelong health begins with breastfeeding. And the theme this year is focusing on the importance of not only the individual mom being able to make a decision to breastfeed, but also the support that needs to come from family, friends, and communities with respect to supporting breastfeeding. And I guess that's one of the things I'd like to say is that I think I was asked this question last year, so I'm more prepared this year. What can we do in the municipality of Mount Pearl? And I think there's a couple of things. One is in terms of having a policy for your employees. Do you have a policy, a breastfeeding support policy that is available to your employees in the city of Mount Pearl? For example, in Eastern Health, and we're a big employer, we brought in our own Eastern Health breastfeeding policy to support moms breastfeeding in the workplace, to make it a comfortable and supportive environment. So that's one of the things you can do. Of course, there's also the broader context of in your community promoting breastfeeding in your public spaces, in places that families attend to on a regular basis. And not only you knowing it's available and that you support it, but having the right equipment there, you know, in the bathrooms, having posters up so families are aware that you are supporting breastfeeding. So that's another thing I think that you can do. And another thing to think about, and of course this is a huge issue for us today in terms of waste disposal and the ecosystem, is that from, breastfeeding is very eco-friendly. And moms who are breastfeeding, they're not using the bottles, they're not having all of this equipment that has to be put into the waste disposal. So another way to actually, from your own perspective, support breastfeeding initiatives in your community. So also wanted to say, last year we had about 40 communities across the province who actually participated in Breastfeeding Week by signing a proclamation. Yesterday morning we had 42, and we had a lot more people come in the last 2 days, so we're well over the numbers from last year.
That's good.
And that's really, really important to see communities out there. Our rates still need work. Our initiation rates in the eastern region are around 67% when women leave hospital, but those rates go down. We recommend at least the first 6 months of life for the babe to be breastfed, but our rates go down relatively quickly when women leave hospital, down into the 30s and 40s depending on the community. So we really want to try and, ways of supporting breastfeeding, because it is, from the perspective of the babe, very healthy. This little fella, Roan, is very healthy. They have less ear infections, less respiratory illness, and also is a great benefit from a health perspective to mom as well. So just a reminder to you, and thank you again for being part of this process as one of the many events I know you're involved in, but it really speaks to community support. Thank you.
Okay, well, we want to wish you the very best with this week, obviously, and certainly anything we can do. I think it's fair to say that the city of Mount Pearl wishes to be a very supportive employer in that particular area, and anything that we can do, obviously, to promote breastfeeding as a healthy endeavor and a proper endeavor, consider us a partner.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
leave this with you. Thank you very
very
much.
much.
And congratulations on your week. Oh, I don't want to have a picture taken with a baby. I don't look as good. Here we go. Look over there, Rowan.
New people to look at.
New people to look at. You're not looking at the deputy mayor. Why isn't he looking at the deputy mayor?
He's enamored with the mayor. He's eyeing your spot. That's right. He's eyeing your spot.
Got the guy on the chair. Just wondering, how do we compare with the rest of Canada now in terms of the? I know we were always
Low.
amongst the lowest. Are
Yeah.
we improving?
We're improving, but we are still lower. I mean, some provinces, it's certainly around 80 to 85%, maybe even a little higher in some.
92% in some provinces for initiation of effort.
Yeah.
And
We're at 67.
and in some cases of Eastern Health as well as 42. So, I mean, we still have a long ways to go. But, I mean, on the positive side of that, since 1985, when our rates were 35%, we have gone up steadily every year since. And with the efforts of what we're doing as collectively from Eastern Health, communities, people coming in, we have seen rate increases every year. So it is continuing to grow, slowly but surely, but it is coming.
There's a program on the other evening on one of the news items. Some community, I think it may have been Ottawa, but I'm not sure. They had a.
I do apologize, I think that's my fault. It's everything.
Sorry.
That is.
On the news item the other evening, they had, I'm pretty sure it was a community in Canada, and they had sort of a breastfeeding day where all the women were encouraged to come out with their babies in a public space. And they had up the signs that, we're open to breastfeeding. And they made mention that it's sort of a generational thing. I know my wife breastfed our two children. And my father and father-in-law, they were always a little uncomfortable with it. Not that they spoke out against it, but like if they came into the room and my wife hadn't been breastfed, well, they'd do an about face and they'd immediately. But they grew to accept it after a while, And I'm glad that the numbers are increasing because it's a cultural change that must take place. So it's good to hear that it's going in the right direction. So maybe we can do that in the city of Mount Pearl in terms of the signage that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe in our public spaces have a breastfeeding day during our city days, just to get the information out that we're open to breastfeeding, and might be a great idea. Thank you.
Certainly help you with materials and promotion, whatever you need.
Indeed.
Perfect.
Actually, you'll come out to the city, but there's a sample of a couple of posters that were there. There are also signage that you're welcome to breastfeed anytime, anywhere within this facility. That was included in the package that was sent. And if any more of those are requested, it's just to contact the Eastern Health.
Sure.
And they can be posted out in any municipal buildings or any place that moms and babies are serviced in the community. So, I mean, that's growing to reach that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
I was going to say, Your
Councillor
Worship,
Stiles,
actually, it's not a question, it's a comment, and I don't know if we're doing it in the Mount Pearl schools, but I know my daughter-in-law, who, I have a new grandson, she's in the school, she starts actually next month, and she's taking the baby into the school, and I think she makes 8 or 10 trips over the course of the year, and as a program that the breastfeeding clinic has in place, and she's gone into the schools or the school up in her area because she lives up in CBS, and she will make 8 trips, and I think it's grade 9s that she's going into the classroom, and I never heard of it in the past, so I don't know if it's something new that you're doing, but it's certainly interesting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck with the week.
Good luck. See ya.
Okay, Council, moving on then. Our first committee report of the day is noted here. We don't have correspondence to address. First Committee, Public Works Committee, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. We have some good news in that it seems like our scheduling for the automated garbage collection citywide, that project which we've had ongoing in a couple of places, as we're all aware, is going to be extended a little more quickly, so expediting the service is good from a number of perspectives. The first thing, of course, is that by having this available, and we're hoping to have it available starting the week of October 8th, which is actually just next week. The 8th is, I think, actually a holiday, but we'll probably start distribution on the Tuesday, although maybe the company that's doing the distribution may be available and able to distribute on the day of the holiday. And, you know, when you think about it, that might not be a bad thing, because more people than usual will likely be home and you know, be able to talk to the people about that. Anyway, we're hoping, or they're hoping, because this is now in the hands of a distributor. They're assembling the carts and delivering the information and putting the door knockers on, all of that sort of thing. They're hoping to be able to get most of the city done in a period of about a week or 10 days. That's fabulous
Very
news.
good.
Residents are advised to begin using the carts with the regular collection system. All of our vehicles now have been retrofitted and are equipped to use the collection system. So once you get them and you read the information, your next scheduled service, I think Director Antle, that is what we're promoting, is actually to begin using it right away, because they're already equipped to do it. These are very simple to use, and I'm going to just flip to the next page if I can, Your Worship. A couple of things that I want to mention, because this is the last meeting that we're going to have prior to actual implementation. So your garbage collection day doesn't change. Everything remains exactly the same. You place the cart to the curb by 8 a.m. One of the great benefits of having the cart, one of the things that we got the most feedback on, in fact, is the fact that most people find helpful about the carts is the fact that they have a storage unit. So when you're, you know, all of us at times are challenged. If you have something in the garbage that may have an odor, you say, well, where can I put this so that it's not going to be a problem in terms of odors throughout the house? Some people put it in a container. Some people put it in a container in the shed or in the garage or whatever. But this really takes care of it. So putting it in, putting the lid down, it's a great storage unit. Ensure the lid is closed when you put it to the curb by 8 o'clock. This next point is really important. Only bagged garbage should be in the container. Even though it's in a container, we're asking that residents don't place open or uncovered or unbagged garbage in that container. Continue placing your blue bags with the recyclables at the curb, but allow an arm's distance so that the arm of the automated vehicle can actually collect it. The arrows on the cart are very clearly indicated because they're on the lid, they're on the cover, and that faces towards the middle of the street. So that's simple. This information is on the cart, but I'm going to take a second to just go through it. Place the cart as you can on or about the nearest flat area. If you live on an incline, obviously you're much more restricted by that. But we have done one of the two pilots in the Farrell Drive area, and honestly, we haven't had many complaints about inclines or slopes. And I know people will probably readily say, yeah, but that was the summertime. But we've had some pretty excessive winds and some bad weather. All the information is basically there. If there are any problems or if you require additional carts, information by way of telephone numbers and also email addresses are there for people to call. So again, we are excited about it in terms of the amount of information. Because we've done a couple of pilots, we're not planning to do obviously the same extensive work in terms of public consultation and meetings citywide. That just wouldn't be manageable, unfortunately. So we wanted to make sure we tested it. Going a little earlier does provide, other than the fact that, you know, it's for all of the right reasons. In fact, the reasons that we're actually doing it, and there are varied and many. It does give our operators an extra period of time prior to winter condition setting and to get used to it and to get used to managing the equipment, because it's no different than these joysticks or video games. The more you use them, the better you're going to be with them. And that's the same thing with these collection systems. So with that in mind, I just want to, wanted to update council on that. So look for the cart to be delivered. I've seen and I've commented on some of the signs, Mr. Antle. They're, critically located throughout the city. We will have some additional advertising. We'll use our digital signs other things. But at all of the gateways come into the city, you can see the big, I think they're probably 4x8 signs. They're fairly large signs saying look for your cart, and we're ready to roll this out. So I'll leave it at that. If people have questions, call the number, check the website, email us, and we'll be happy to get back to you as quickly as we can. And hopefully this will be implemented without too much fuss. It is a fairly simple practice and one that is in place in many municipalities throughout North America right now.
I'm going to stop you there for a second. Councillor Stoyles, did you wish to comment on
I
this
just had
item?
a comment. I'm certainly a big supporter of the carrots. I think is great. I supported actually a number of years ago when I was in Labrador and saw the thing. But I had a couple of concerns that people had contacted me. One was this lady on Lindbergh, and she lived in the townhouse, and she's going to be gone for several weeks, and she didn't want the cart delivered. So what are we doing with people like that? Just give the name to you, and will you deliver her cart, or will you hold on to it? And the other question was, I'm assuming, is my understanding, you're going to knock, or the people who live in the carts is going to knock on every door. And in a couple of areas, I know in one particular area, several people had mentioned to me that they work night shift, and they're sleeping in the daytime, and they were concerned about someone coming knocking on the door just to give them the cart. They would prefer just have the cart left there, and they would have it when they didn't want to be awakened after, nurses. I think on one Pacific Street, 5 households, or nurses or work night shift, and they were concerned about being woken up to get the cart, and I said I would mention that as well.
Mr. Randall?
Okay. Councillor Stoyles, appreciate the question. We do plan to deliver the carts not by knocking on the door, but by placing the door knocker on the doorknob or in the mailbox close by. It wouldn't be manageable to deliver the carts and knock on people's doors and have a conversation. It's intended to be bring it up to very close to the door, lay the cart there, and quietly, I suppose reasonably quietly, leave the cart, and we'll have some information on the cart. If people are not going to be at home, certainly we'd like them to call us or email and tell us that they're going to be gone for a few weeks, and we can probably try to withhold that particular delivery. But right now the plan is to deliver all carts to every household.
Thank you.
Just subsequent to that as well, Your Worship, we're still working through some of the logistical things based on the feedback that we have both in the Farrell Drive and the Mortimer Drive area. So one of the things that we're looking at, and one of the challenges, for example, on Farrell Drive, and it was legitimate, was, where do you store the cart? In areas where there are duplex or row housing, that sort of thing. Lindbergh is going to have a very similar challenge. And people have found a way, for the most part, to work around that. But one of the things that we're looking at, for example, is, if you have people living and there's just one or two individuals, you may be able to get into a cart sharing system. There are all kinds of different things that we're looking at that are in place in other jurisdictions, where if there is a townhouse or row housing, it's quite possible that they can manage with a single cart. That's possible. We're looking at all those kinds of things. For right now, we're planning to deliver carts to each of the households. That's the plan. But we'll make adjustments with this as we sort of move along. I mentioned here in the chamber before the whole concept of the buddy system for seniors or people who have either disabilities or ailments or simply aging, and they feel they might have a challenge getting the cart to the curb. So we're trying as much as we can to address these, and they were really beneficial, in terms of having issues raised as part of the pilot project. So enough with that. We'll see how it all rolls out, and if people have any concerns, the number, Councillor Stoyles, is there to just call, and we'll try to make whatever adjustments on the fly we can. But I just want to underscore, because it is very important, I'm not sure that they got it, but we're not planning to have the conversation at the door like we did with the pilot projects. It simply would be unmanageable, because in some cases, our staff were being held up for 10 and 15, 20 minutes, and in some cases, people wanted to know about it, was new, was innovative. The idea of getting that information out there is simply to get as many of the bugs out of the system as we can. Now we're going to drop the carts off. This is simply a cart. This is, I don't want to underplay it either. But it's not rocket science. If you have questions, by all means call. If you have issues or concerns, by all means call. But the actual placement of the cart to the curb is not it's not all that complicated. So follow the directions that are provided, and we'll go from there. The only other thing, Your Worship, that I want to mention by way of committee report today is the tropical storm Leslie. We will finish this week picking up debris left over from tropical storm Leslie. We have to have an end in sight in terms of the collection. So this week is the final week for collection, and it's also the final week for our bulk garbage. I know the area where I live was collected yesterday. They were right on it. Normally it's the week of, but our street was actually done yesterday, and so this is a lot of additional work. And of course, on top of the normal waste management stuff, and then the debris from Leslie, and then the bulk garbage collection, our forces have been extremely busy. So we have to put some finality to it. In many parts of the city, we've already made a second, and in some cases, even a third run. So this will be the last week. So if you have anything that's out, that's by way of trees or property, anything that you need to put out to the curb, get it out now. Follow the directions that are on the website, and we'll be happy to take it, but it ends this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes Public Works. Moving on to Community Services. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. Short agenda for us this evening. The Community Services Department is hosting the annual Oktoberfest Craft Fair on Thanksgiving Day, Monday, October the 8th, from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the Reed Center. And of course, this is a wonderful opportunity to get up there and buy all kinds of things, fall decor, Christmas gifts, you name it, they're going to have it. Admission is $2, and children under 12 get in for free. And of course, in keeping with the Oktoberfest theme, there's going to be sausages offered for lunch, and of course, garden refreshments as well. I don't think they're going to be having beer, though. It's just going to be legal beverages. And of course,
Councillor Eager's really sad about that.
No. The Mount Pearl Girl Guides are actually going to be providing that. That's right. The Girl Guides are going to be providing that. So we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it on the up and up. And of course, there's going to be a children's craft area in the kiddies' corner. And if anybody has any other questions or wants some more information, they can contact Krista Tucker at 748-1008. Of course, we heard at the beginning of our council meeting that this is Fire Prevention Week. And the St. John's Regional Fire Department is going to be holding their annual Fire Prevention Parade on October the 6th, starting at 10 o'clock. The parade is going to run through the following streets in Mount Pearl: Topsail Road, Commonwealth Avenue, Ruth Avenue, Old Placentia Road, Richard Nolan Drive, Smallwood Drive, and Olympic Drive. And the parade is going to conclude at the Glacier Arena and the Mount Pearl Fire Station designated areas, as we were told. And if you look very closely during the parade, you might even see a pink pumper. You will see a pink pumper. It's going to be in the parade. No, you won't need to look very closely, actually.
I think it's going to stand out, yeah.
No, you won't need to look closely. The Mount Pearl Sport Alliance is seeking nominations for the 2012 Annual Athletic Awards. This program is to recognize and honor outstanding contributions to sport in Mount Pearl, with awards being given to the top female and male athletes, team, coach, and executive of the year. For the athletes and teams, this is a designation for 18 years and older. And for the younger athletes who are competing at a senior level. The sporting community is requested to please visit the Mount Pearl Sport Alliance website for the complete information and nomination forms. The submissions may be completed online, which is very convenient for anybody who is considering nominating somebody, and they certainly, we'd encourage people to do that as well. The deadline for nominations is November 15th, and this is just for information purposes. And finally, the Memorial Seahawks have been in on our turf again. We're really pleased about that. On September 28th and 29th, they hosted the University of PEI Panthers soccer teams on our Team Gauger turf. And we want to thank the Seahawks, of course, for their involvement in recreation within the city of Mount Pearl and for allowing us to showcase our facility for their benefit as well. And that is it for Community Services.
Thank you very much. Corporate Services, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 3 items here, 2 outside the kit. Firstly, we got a request from our Director of Community Services to attend the Pro Aquatics Conference. This is in keeping with our policy, and I recommend approval. The committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Did I read that correctly? The 2012 Pro Aquatics Conference and Trade Show? Did it? Okay. The next one is the invoices for council approval. And this is the yellow sheet. It's been updated here. So you can see we have 13 in total. The total for this invoice is $3,758,444.27, and I move that the amount be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded. Questions or comments on invoices for approval listed 1 to 13? Anything? Call it. All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Just a note, Your Worship, there are items 9 and 10 about, again, our water consumption for July and August. You know, 188,000 and 171,000. So again, just a reminder that the cost of our pure water that we're enjoying here in our city is coming at quite a cost here. And the next item, Your Worship, is outside the kit. And this is a request from Councillor Dave Aker to attend M&L's 62nd Annual Conference and Trade Show being held this weekend in Gander from the 4th to the 6th. And again, this is in accordance with Council's professional development policy, and the committee is recommending approval for this request, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
And that's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
And that's corporate services. We have planning and land use. Councillor Ledwell, you were acting as chair at the meeting. Are you bringing in? No. Oops. Mr. Aker is going to bring in the committee report.
Councillor Aker is going to bring it in? Yep. I'm on my feet.
All right,
ready to
go ahead. Councillor Aker.
I think I'm going to do number 2 first, if that's okay with you, Your Worship. I think this gentleman down here might be waiting on something on the Planning and Land Use Committee report. Am I safe in saying that? Nothing tonight? Thank you. Okay, I'll go back to the beginning. I didn't want to see anybody unnecessarily wait through this meeting like we all have to do, of course, right?
Are you saying we're boring, Councillor?
No, not at all. Well, I am. I can't speak for the rest of you, right? You know,
what?
right?
Sounds like you're saying we're boring.
This past summer, the department undertook a review, basically, of the provincial government's initiative to highlight the importance and compliance with mobility, impaired, and accessibility legislation. And we undertook a review, basically, of the parking spaces that you find here in the city of Mount Pearl, as well as a review of our regulations to see, basically, how consistent, how much they comply with those of the provincial government. So under, for example, the Highway Traffic Act, that gives us the authority to enforce through our Mount Pearl, the City of Mount Pearl's traffic regulations. The review found that everything is in order. Our tickets are at $100, and basically our officers have authority to issue the tickets. Now, on the provincial government, they have the building accessibility regulations, which basically monitors parking lots and spaces that you find on buildings. This is administered through government services, and these, for example, when a new building is being built, that not only has to go through the City of Mount Pearl, it also has to go through the Government Service Center. We didn't find our regulations were aligned in that particular case, and that's partly because there's been a review done by government, and effective September 30th, all the regulations regarding building accessibility came in place. So the motion here today basically is to amend our development regulations, sections 2 and 9. The purpose of the amendment is, again, to make it consistent with both the Provincial Highway Traffic Act as well as the Provincial Development Building Accessibility regulations. The motion, Your Worship, basically is that for any development, there would be, any building, there would be a minimum of 1 parking space provided for people who are mobility impaired. A minimum of 1 and 4% of the total number of required parking spaces would be required, and that would bring us consistent with both provincial pieces of legislation and regulation. As a note, in our review that was done this summer through the department, we did find basically 42% of all of our businesses and buildings surveyed had no sign or logo, which, when you think about it today, is really deficient, you know what I mean? Now, it's not up to the city to ensure that these 42%, it's not up to us to enforce that. If anybody has an issue with that, they have to really go to government services and complain. If they complain to the city, I guess the city officials will refer them back to government services to enforce it. 35% of businesses had both a sign and a logo, and I guess if you look at the positive side, that's good. And then we had, and I guess there's a bit of confusion out here as to what you require. 23% of properties had one or the other, but not both. But it's required under provincial legislation to have both the blue zone painted as well as the mobility sign posted there as well, right? All this came into effect October 1st, and that's why we're bringing this here now forward, so that we'll align the two. So I propose, the motion I should say I make is we amend Section 2 and Section 9, Section 9 being the off-street parking and loading regulations, to bring them consistent with the provincial legislation, and I so move.
It has been moved and seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Any questions or comments? Councillor Tessier?
Comment. When they were talking about the amendments in Section 2, they're talking about a definition, the designated mobility impaired parking space, which means a parking space designated for motor vehicles used by persons with a mobility impairment. I mean, we see it all the time. The permit is in the car, but the permit doesn't always go with the car. Like if the person who does not have the mobility impairment is not in the car, that doesn't mean that the car still gets to use the mobility impaired parking space.
That is correct.
We see that abuse all the time. So I'd like to see, I mean, as much as it just absolutely drives me crazy to see cars parked in a blue zone that does not have a permit, it drives me equally as crazy to see a car pull up with the parking permit inside, but the person with the mobility impairment is not in the vehicle. Because that's still taking the space. Yes, that's still taking the space of somebody who may require that spot. So you're still taking the space that somebody else might need. So I think that's one thing that I hope there's a continued focus on, curbing that abuse as well.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
I just want to bring up the point that sometimes people don't have a mobility issue that are using the parking permits. When was it? Probably, it was last year. There was a lady on it, and she had a respiratory problem. And when she got out, people sort of attacked her and left nasty messages on her car. But she was eligible to use this. So it's not only people that have a physical mobility.
That's right.
Yeah. So I just want to make that point, because that changed my view on things when I heard that lady speak, that, that just because they don't look like they can't, that they need it, but they may need it. So just want to raise that issue.
Yeah, they're both very valid points. Under the Highway Traffic Act and our City of Mount Pearl traffic regulations, our municipal enforcement officers have the ability to enforce when people park in a blue zone, a properly marked blue zone, and do not have a permit in the car. That's what they can enforce. The other issue is a very big challenge because, as the Deputy Mayor says, when you, on the face of it, you see somebody walking from a car off a mobility designated zone, you really have to make a judgment call. Are they disabled? And sometimes it's not readily apparent.
It doesn't run with the vehicle.
Right, it runs with the person.
But that was the issue. This lady, she was on CBC Radio. She came out, there was a note there, and then there was another lady that sort of chastised her and got in a heated argument over it. And she said they both ended up crying because this other lady was a cancer survivor, and this lady physically couldn't walk the distance. And she even said she feels guilty, even though she's entitled to using this parking permit, that on windy days she can't catch her breath. So she will park in the blue zone.
That's a fair point.
And then she said on other days, if I don't need to use it, if it's a calm day and I can breathe, even if the blue zone is opened, I will park in a non-blue zone and not use it. But she said whenever I have to use it, I feel guilty. And she said I'm prepared for an onslaught because she said I've had arguments, I've had nasty notes written. So I just want to, because it certainly changed my perspective, because I was with Councillor Tessier where, sometimes you'd be at a parking lot and you'd see someone who looked able-bodied jumping out of their car and moving into the store, and you'd say, well, you'd think, what are these people? But don't be too quick to jump. When I heard this lady's story, it just changed my whole perspective on things, that you can't be too quick to judge because you really don't know, what condition they may be suffering. So I just wanted to, again, bring that up there.
Point is well made. We'll call the question then on the motion as presented. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Your Worship, the next item, number 2, Seaboard Liquid Carrier Limited, an above-ground diesel storage tank at 31 Alston Street. This property is situated in the light industrial zone. An above-ground storage tank is classified as a hazardous use, and that is, according to our regulations, at the discretion of council. We did engage in a public consultation process, and we had until, I believe it was September 24th or 25th, to have a briefing session. But the session got canceled because we, despite mailing out to all the neighbours and also advertising in the Telegram and on our website, we didn't get any feedback saying there was any objection to this. In addition, we've consulted with the fire department, Department of Environment, and basically all the regulatory regime that's outside of the city under the jurisdiction of other government agencies has been met, and I'd like to move that council use its discretion to approve this application.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
Thank you. Next item, Your Worship, is a notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will at a regular meeting of Council move an amendment to the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 1988 that, if enacted, will address a number of anomalies within the development regulations with respect to reflecting the amendments to the development regulations and to correct typographical errors and numerical references within the regulations. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to clarify a number of matters within the regulations that are not substantive changes to the main body of the regulations, but are deemed as housekeeping amendments with respect to grammar, reference to sections, correction to zoning symbols, and identification of amended sections within the development regulations. Now, that's it. Thank you.
Sounds serious, doesn't it?
Development permit list for September 17th to 28th. I table permits number 55 through 61, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
For the same period, Your Worship and fellow colleagues, the residential permits, $495,000, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Commercial permits for the same period are $5,000. It was a slow week.
Wow.
And I so move.
Busy week. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one committee report, which is outside the agenda. We referenced it earlier, and that is our engineering services report. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to provide Council once again with an update on the construction of the new multiplex up at the Reed Centre site. The surface asphalt work on the Phase 1 parking lot up adjacent to Olympic Drive should be completed this week. As well, the lights and the light stands are for the parking area are on order. It's expected it'll take about 8 weeks for the order to come in and the on-site installation to take place. We're making good progress with the geothermal wells. 12 of the 48 wells have been drilled, and we're undergoing testing at this point on those 12. We'll let you know. Update next meeting. The demolition of the existing brickwork is certainly ongoing. That's going to depend a little bit on the weather, of course. As the weather gets a bit colder and damper, that might put a stop to the brickwork. But as long as the weather continues to be nice, we're going to continue with that. The multiplex mechanical room, the foundation for that work is ongoing. It's at least 45% complete. And work is currently ongoing with the contractor and with community services to install, I guess, a roundabout at the rear of the glacier so we can separate some of the public traffic with the construction traffic. Of course, this is an important safety issue that we have to keep in mind as we go through with this construction process. People are still accessing the site, the glacier, the Reed Centre, the track and field, so we're doing everything that we can to separate the two streams of traffic and avoid any dangerous occurrences up there. So, in conclusion, I'm certainly pleased to report that we've got 18% complete, so we're now almost a fifth of the way there, so we're flying along. And that concludes engineering services.
I have a question. You're getting one, but it's temporary. Got to start somewhere. I have a question. Where's my camera? Where's my quick cam? I wanted a web camera set up at the track and field building looking down on the site. I got a response from our IT director that could be done. So now I'm sucking. Where's real-time video? I want people to be able to go into the city website and see this development as it's happening. Yes, I do.
That just to update that we've received approval from engineering to proceed with that. So our IT manager is currently working on it, and that should be up and running real soon.
I think people in Mount Pearl would love to be able to go in and have a look at that. And right from the deck of the track and field building is where you actually have the best view of everything that's happened downstream from you on it, right? And I think it's a great idea so people can see it as it progresses. All right, we're up to new business. Last week we started on this side. This week we're going to start over here. And let's go in to out. Councillor Stoyles. I'm mixing it up on you.
Thank you. I don't have much this evening. I just want to mention that on the 13th, the Church of the Good Shepherd has their dinner theatre, and tickets are here at City Hall. They're $50 each, and Amy House is the highliner, I guess, and I had told him that I would mention it again. I was there not last week, week before, for lunch after our last public council meeting, and said that I would mention again. Tickets are going great, but they still would like to sell another couple of tables, so if anybody is interested.
When is it again?
It's the 13th, and
Of
tickets
October.
Of October, and Amy House is the highlighter, and they're looking for people to buy tickets. And like I said, I brought some down here to City Hall, and if anybody is interested in buying one, they can contact me, or of course they can contact Mona Vergale.
Okay.
Thank you.
You very much. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. What's the name of the development next to Shadow Park, Avery Place?
Yep, Avery Place, yep.
Parkdale Ridge. Okay, I keep forgetting the actual name. I know it's Avery Place. I had a call today from a resident of Avery Place wondering about what the status was of that development. He's talked to the developer, and the developer is saying the city is withholding permits, and I know there's been a tremendous back and forth in terms of stormwater management, some other issues. Can you give me an update on that and let us know as much as you can, at least, what's happening? And because he called on two different things, that was one of them. So can you just maybe update council on that, if you don't mind?
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Your Worship, they have submitted plans recently for the next number of units, which we're dealing with. We have also had a meeting in recent time with the developer, and we are sending the developer a list of a number of outstanding matters that need to be addressed. So all in all, it is all moving forward. Just, I guess, taking a bit longer than I guess both the developer and the person who contacted you anticipated to go forward. But it is moving forward.
No, I did mention Mr. Yevchek to the caller today that we were withholding permits, but legitimately so. We had some concerns about some of the proposed plans for the development, and we were withholding.
There were grade issues and things.
Yeah, there were issues that were there, and I guess the message is that in situations like that, we can't issue development permits until we're pretty well assured that residents are going to be protected from things that could happen, like flooding or other issues. And if we didn't do that, and we issued permits and there were problems down the road, I guess they'd be complaining to us in an entirely different manner, and very legitimately so. So that was sort of what I answered. So do we have any kind of a time frame as to when this might be resolved, or?
In terms of the full development, there's still a number of issues that need to be addressed, so I can't really give you the time frame with respect to that. I can tell you that with respect to the next number of lots that we have, the most recent and up-to-date and kind of final plans, building permits will be issued on those within the next week.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I guess the concern from the resident was, look, we're living here now. This resident's living there a year and a half. And he said, are we going to be permanently living in a construction zone here? Because, he wasn't happy. And they sold a place actually on Humber and moved down there. They liked the layout and the plan and the development. But, he doesn't want to be another 3 or 4 or 5 years living in a construction zone. And I don't blame him.
We recently, just by way of background once again on this particular issue, we recently met with the developer, brought in engineering, planning, all of the necessary regulatory people within the system, and met with the developer. There were some issues that continued. There was a timeline put in place to get these permits for this round done, because it's being done, as you can appreciate, in chunks. There was kind of an understanding we'd do that in about 3 weeks or so. We hope to have that done. Looks like that's going to happen. And then they're trying to put together one full package for the rest of it to move it along. But there's no real major slowdown at that point in time.
Well, that's good to hear. Sorry, I think you have another.
Yeah, and go ahead, Stefan.
Your Worship, I just, in terms of time frames and so on, I just want to remind Council that when this development first was brought forward to Council, it was actually in two parts. The first part is the part that we're dealing with, and that's the row dwellings along Avery Place. There is a second part that, and I'm responding more to the comment about years of construction. There is a second part of this, and this is a multi-story apartment building, condominium, which Council initially said at the outset of this development they have, in principle, no problem with it, but we have not received any details or any information which to review. The developer has indicated that once the completion of the row dwellings is done, then they will go forward with that next piece. So, in terms of the timing of construction and so on, there'll still be time in which area is under construction. How much time we don't know, because at this point we have not received an application for the second phase.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. I appreciate the information. I will pass it on. Same caller asked about, and a resident again of Avery Place, asked about whether or not there's going to be access to the Team Guju bypass road, I guess, from Topsail Road. Now, my understanding is there's not. The idea is that it's a bypass, that you get through Mount Pearl quickly, get out to the Howlett Drive extension, and that's sort of the end of it. So if you could just give me an answer on that as well.
Your Worship, the Team Gushu Highway, from the plans that we have seen to date, there is no access connection at Black Marsh Road. It's an underpass that goes under Black Marsh Road. As it comes towards Topsail Road, there will be access onto the Team Gushu Highway at that point.
At Topsail?
At Topsail Road, it's going to be an overpass. Actually,
I remember seeing that.
The entrance, the current entrance where the lights are, that go into Mount Pearl Square, that's actually one of the major ramps that's going to be both coming into and out of, or off of the Team Gushu Highway. And what will happen is that access into Mount Pearl Square will actually be closed. Will be closed at that location, and that ramp will sweep up.
They're up.
Yeah, and likewise they'll have a ramp on the other side of the highway as well, as my understanding. Yeah, and you can see that underway right now. There'll be no access connection by Avery Place. That'll just go over actually Newfoundland Trailway. There's a large culvert there. If you take a look, and that's that large culvert is where the trailway will go underneath the Team Gushu Highway.
Yep.
And then it'll continue sweeping towards Brookfield Road, where they plan another interchange, and then they will have a last interchange somewhere in the area of Heavy Tree Road and Commonwealth Avenue, somewhere in that area.
I mean, it connects directly to the Robert E. Howlett, right?
And then it goes, then it'll continue to swing straight forward to that.
Because it's actually not a separate
Okay, well,
highway. Let's not go there again.
Thank you for that. I had it backwards. I thought my recollection of the plan, the road plan and design, was that there was going to be actual access on Black Marsh, not on Topsail. But I guess the further to that, for my own edification and information, do we have maps or designs or something? If I could get one of those, I'd perhaps drop one off to I'd like to see it myself as well, because it's been a while since I've seen it.
There was a particularly effective one where the road was actually placed on an aerial shot.
Yeah.
That showed it all. That would
I'd like
be
to see
ideal.
that again.
But I don't
we
know.
probably
Where did
did
we
see
see
it
the
before.
Department of Transportation at the time, I think. Yeah, it'd be good to get at that. I agree with you.
I'd like to have it. Your Worship, this next topic, and I apologize for taking the time, but this is really, I had a call. This is not really a municipal issue, but it is an issue that I want to raise because it has implications for all of us. I had a call from a resident yesterday. He actually lives on Westminster Drive. He had filled up his car with a chain service station on Kenmount Road, came into Mount Pearl, and noticed that there was 4.9 cents in the difference in the price of gas. It was 4.9 cents higher in here. Same chain, same gas station chain. He actually was so disgruntled that he took the time to call the owner. The owner did take his call. Was very calm, very professional in discussing the matter with him. He said, listen, this is driven by market prices and competition and all of that. And the resident said, well, that competition is the same, or should be the same, on Kenmount Road as it is in Mount Pearl. He accused him of gouging, basically. This is the caller accusing the owner of the gas station of gouging. And he said, well, if you check, he said, my prices are really not out of line with what you see. And then he said, well, maybe you're getting together, and maybe you're fixing the prices and all of that. Now, these are not my words. These are the words of the caller. I want to be very clear. But at the same time, if that's happening, that's a very serious matter. The story goes on, though. So he called the gas station owner, talked to him. This gas station allegedly sells about 40,000 liters of gas a day. That's a busy gas station, but it's not extraordinary. If you think of 5 cents on a liter, that's $2,000 a day. That's $60,000 a month. That's a lot of money. If it's an error and the prices weren't adjusted, my understanding is they're supposed to be adjusted on Thursday. The story doesn't end there. This gentleman was pretty irate, so he went down to 3 other gas stations in the immediate area, not far from where we are right now, in fact, and he checked the price of gas. And the gas prices were lower. They were down by almost 5 cents from where they were earlier in the day. And he went to each of the 3 gas station attendants and said, have you adjusted? Now, this was yesterday, Monday. He said, have you adjusted your prices recently? And the girl at the first station said, yes, about 10 minutes ago. We dropped our prices by 4.9 cents. And the story was repeated in the 2 other locations. This is a little mind-boggling, isn't it? Because it seems like, based on, and he did, in talking to the first manager, he said, you know what? He said, while you're telling me it's market-driven, he said, I have a good mind to get a group of citizens, residents together, and go over and picket your gas station tomorrow. And he said, sir, you do whatever you feel you have to do. But it was kind of ironic that the other 3 gas stations had their prices dropped within a half hour of that conversation. And I just want to raise it. I don't know that there's price fixing. I don't know that there's anything ongoing. But I did tell this caller that I would raise the issue. And I think if that is happening, it's an issue that needs to be out there. It's an issue that needs public attention. And I think it's shameful that if gas stations, their owners or tenants, or if they're getting together in particular, it's even more shameful, that they're not dropping the prices, because we all know that allegedly on Thursday we could have a significant increase of 11 cents, potentially 11 cents per liter. That's 8 to 10. Well, that's still a significant increase. If you do the math on 5 cents a liter at $2,000 a day, if they are pumping 40,000 liters, that's a story that I'm not happy to share today, but I did tell the caller that I'll definitely raise it. It is a serious issue, and he said now he was dealing in the 3 gas stations, he was dealing with attendants. So I mean, he wasn't holding them in any way accountable or responsible. He said it's kind of coincidental, though, that all 3 of them had their prices drop within a half hour of that conversation, including the initial, so that was 4, had prices dropped. So I guess you can't be too mindful and you can't be too careful. He was really perturbed by that. Called me back a second time after supper last night to tell me about the second part, because when he spoke to the original manager, he was angry and upset, and it became a little bit confrontational. But when he went out and said, that's not good enough, and he checked the other 3 gas stations, he called me after that to tell me what had happened. And I wanted to share it with council and with the public, so just to let people know what's happening.
Thank you. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to give a little update on the progress of the North East Avalon Regional Economic Development Board. Of course, as we know, the board lost its funding from the federal government through ACOA and also from the provincial government last spring. I did want to make mention, though, that the board has decided to proceed with their activities and try and come up with ways to make themselves sustainable and generate some revenue. To that end, they've scheduled a municipal consultation session on October 24th. It's going to be held at the Comfort Inn from 5 to 9 that evening, and certainly I'll be attending on behalf of the city, but other members of council are certainly welcome to attend. They're just trying to come up with some ideas that they can create some sustainability for themselves, offer some value added. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that, for large municipalities like ourselves with our own economic development department, that, the value is a bit more difficult to identify, I guess, than it is in the smaller municipalities where they can help with economic development strategies and so on and so forth. But I still think it's important that all the municipalities in the region have a voice at the table, and certainly just want to throw that out there in case anybody wants to attend.
Okay, thank you very much. Going in, out. Deputy Mayor.
Just one here that I wanted to mention about the, Councillor Walsh mentioned the picking up of the branches, the Leslie debris. And I just wanted to bring it forth to our staff. I received, well over a dozen compliments from residents on the speed at which it was picked up and the nature at which it was picked up and how clean their properties were left afterwards. I know in my father's case, he lost some big trees, and there was quite a volume of branch supplies out there, and they were very complimentary. So I just wanted to bring that up publicly to thank our staff, and I would ask Director Antle if he would relay that information, because, again, a lot of happy people with the services that are being provided here. I said one, but while I'm speaking of that, I should make mention of the employee recognition night that we had last Thursday night here at the Mount Pearl Hotel. And it was a great evening for our employees. We had some great entertainment there. John Sheehan, yes? And I got to say, man, he was a funny guy. I've been with Mayor Sims now on many occasions. I don't think I've ever heard you laugh that hard before.
He's a funny guy. I truly do like him. He's very talented.
He did a great job. But it was nice to see the recognition for our employees from, I think it was 5 years of service to 35 years of service with the city. And I just want to send thanks out to all the people that organized that, because I know what goes into organizing these events. So again, it was a great night. So congratulations to all involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Tessier.
Just a couple of brief items. First of all, I want to touch on something that we had discussed earlier in the meeting. The Deputy Mayor raises a very interesting point and has given certainly me pause for thought, and I guess the general public should take pause for thought as well when it comes to the blue zone parking. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So that actually was a good point, so I wanted to thank you for raising that, because that really is an excellent point. Two things. I had a question today from a resident wondering when the asphalt plants are closing, because I don't know if the weather has anything to do with that, or if it is just a secular time of year thing. Do we have any idea? That's right.
There's dates that we generally stop laying asphalt for surface course, and there's a restriction on that because of temperatures. Asphalt plants will go on as long as the companies feel they can still produce asphalt for things like base course asphalt driveways and what have you. And again, it's dependent on weather. But I can't give you an indication right now. They'll keep going as long as the weather keeps holding.
Excellent. It's a good year for it. Okay, and speaking of good years, I too want to pass on compliments from a resident. She pointed out something to me, and we've discussed it here before in Public Council several times this year, how good the flower pots look. It is October 2nd, and they are still in bloom as if it was the middle of July. Which, once they called me and told me and said, just really appreciative of how good they look, still, we didn't apparently, they said that the person taking care of them or the people taking care of them did not give up on them past a certain date. They're still being maintained. They still look beautiful. So on the way to council tonight, I actually took note of the ones on Tops Road, and they really are still in bloom as though it was the middle of July. It's unbelievable. So, and that's why the asphalt plants are not closing. So anyway, I just wanted to pass on compliments again because, again, October 2nd, how often do you see it?
Well, never before.
Never before. So again, credit where credit is due.
Thank you very much. Councillor Raker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to comment on an event we had last night. We had an open house regarding the new condo apartment buildings that are proposed at 166 Park Avenue. This is the former school board site. We had a pretty good turnout, about 18 people. Of course, we were only targeting those people who attended our briefing session. We had some good comments, constructive comments, a diverse view. Councillor Ledwell, Deputy Mayor Locke were there as well as members of the public, as well as some of the residents and that. So we look forward now in the next few days to looking at our decision to approve or disapprove of that particular development. That'll go through committee, and I would say probably in a couple of weeks we bring it back to this table with a recommendation. So just want to get council primed for that discussion in short order. The other thing I want to wish good luck to there's 3 soccer teams from Mount Pearl gone off to nationals. That's the under 14 boys and girls and the under 16. Many of you have probably attended some fundraising that's occurred the last few weeks. These are very, very expensive endeavors, right? So hopefully they'll come home. I think talking to the coaches, bringing home the gold is not necessarily the goal here. You know, being such a small province and a relatively small community compared to others, if our teams come back finishing either 4th, 5th, or 6th, I think we're doing a fantastic job. And it's just nice to see that they won the All Different Lands, of course. And the final thing, Your Worship and Council, is the CBC Radio is having a planning officials panel on the morning show this coming Friday, and it's really to do about, I think they call it New Burbia. I'm not going to be there. No, I'll be
there.
I'll be on the road, but I just want to suggest to you, if you have a chance to listen in, Stefan Yevchuk, who's probably forgotten more about planning than the rest of us could remember, or me at least anyway, will be appearing. Well, wish you good luck, and that's meant as a compliment, and I might sum it up by saying no pressure, Stefan. Good luck. Thank you.
So basically what you're saying is that our city planner is old and forgetful.
No.
I think that's what they said. Did they not say that he was old and forgetful? I think that's what he said. He said he's forgotten more about planning, so you're saying our planners... He'll do fine.
Your Worship, I also want to mention the Seniors Independence tomorrow. They have their afternoon tea, and nobody mentioned it. I had it down to mention, and I totally had forgotten about it. You're going tomorrow afternoon?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to be heading to Gander tomorrow morning because I have the board meeting at 3 o'clock for M&L. So please pass along my regrets. I already did
we'll tell them that
but
you didn't think enough about them to show up.
They do have tickets available if anybody wants to just drop in, and they're looking forward to a big turnout tomorrow.
Perfect. Yep, perfect. Okay, that's everything, folks. Thank you. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved. We stand adjourned. Thank you.